Listen carefully, because this message is not for everyone. There comes a moment in a sensitive person's life when they don't get angry anymore. They don't argue. They don't explain. They simply stop caring. And when that happens, people around them feel confused, even threatened, because something powerful has just awakened. Carl Jung believed this moment is not emotional death, it is psychological rebirth. If you've ever felt tired of giving, tired of being misunderstood, tired of holding everything together, stay with me, because what you're experiencing is not weakness, it's the beginning of freedom. Most people think that when you stop caring, you become cold, distant, heartless, but that is not true. You don't stop caring because you lack feelings. You stop caring because you have felt too much for too long. You have carried emotional weight that was never meant to be yours. You have explained yourself to people who never wanted to understand. You have given chances to people who only learned how much more they could take. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He believed that the psyche has a limit, and when that limit is crossed repeatedly, the mind protects itself by changing, not loudly, not dramatically, but silently. That silence is often mistaken for indifference. In reality, it is self-respect being born. At first, you care because you believe love can heal everything. You believe patience will fix what is broken. You believe that if you just try harder, speak softer, give more, things will finally change. Jung would say this is the ego trying to preserve connection at any cost. You sacrifice your own needs to keep others comfortable. And slowly, without realizing it, you abandon yourself. But something happens when the soul gets tired. You wake up one day and the emotional chaos is gone, not because the situation improved, but because you changed. You no longer feel the urge to chase explanations. You no longer feel responsible for other people's behavior. You no longer need to be understood by those who refuse to listen. This is not emotional numbness. This is clarity. Jung called this process individuation, the moment you stop living through other people's expectations and start living from your inner truth. It is the moment you reclaim your energy. This is why toxic people react so strongly when you stop caring. Narcissists feel it as loss of control. Manipulators feel it as rejection, because your emotional reactions were feeding them. Your explanations were giving them power. Your empathy was something they learned to exploit. When you withdraw that energy, they panic. And this is when they say, "You've changed." But what they really mean is, "You no longer give me access to you." You no longer argue to prove your worth. You no longer defend your boundaries. You no longer beg to be valued. You simply step back. And that silence is louder than any argument you ever had. Carl Jung warned that people who refuse to confront their own shadow will project it onto others. Sensitive people often become the target of this projection. You absorb blame, you absorb guilt, you absorb emotional responsibility that was never yours. When you stop caring, you stop absorbing other people's darkness. This is why stopping to care feels strange at first. It feels empty, quiet, almost uncomfortable. Because chaos was familiar, overthinking felt normal, emotional intensity felt like connection. Peace feels unfamiliar when you've lived in emotional survival mode for years. But this quiet is not loneliness, it is recovery. You begin to notice how much energy you were wasting, how much of yourself you were giving away just to keep the peace, how often you silenced your intuition to avoid conflict. Jung believed that ignoring the inner voice is one of the greatest sources of psychological suffering. When you stop caring, that inner voice becomes clear again. You start choosing yourself without announcing it. You leave conversations earlier. You stop replying immediately. You stop explaining why something hurt you. Not because it didn't hurt, but because you finally understand that not everyone deserves access to your inner world. This is where true strength forms. You realize that being kind does not mean being available to everyone. Being empathetic does not mean tolerating disrespect. Being loving does not mean self-betrayal. Jung taught that wholeness comes when we integrate strength with sensitivity, not when we destroy one to preserve the other. The world often teaches sensitive people that they must harden to survive. Jung taught the opposite. He believed sensitivity is a form of intelligence, and intelligence learns when to engage and when to withdraw. When you stop caring, you don't lose your depth, you protect it. Some people will miss the old you, the version that overgave, the version that stayed silent, the version that tolerated emotional neglect. But that version of you was surviving. This version is healing. And healing is threatening to those who benefited from your wounds. You may notice fewer people around you, less noise, less drama, more space, more clarity. Jung believed solitude is not punishment. It is the space where the self is restored. Not everyone is meant to come with you into this new phase of awareness. And that's okay, because the day you stop caring is not the day you stop loving. It is the day you stop abandoning yourself. You still care, but selectively. You still love, but wisely. You still feel, but without losing yourself. That is freedom. Carl Jung once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Sometimes becoming who you truly are begins with letting go of what no longer deserves your care. And when you finally do, you'll understand something deeply powerful. You were never weak for caring. You were strong enough to stop.